Android 9.0 Pie has introduced a new gesture-based navigation system to replace the traditional 3-button navigation system, as most of you probably already know by this point.
Now, as part of Android P, we're introducing a new system navigation that we've been working on for more than a year now. And the design recognizes a trend towards smaller screen bezels and places an emphasis on gestures over multiple buttons at the edge of the screen.
Now, a lot of people like this new system, arguing that it's the future of navigation and mobile operating systems. But a lot of people argue that the old system was just fine, and the new gestures are just copying Apple's system that they implemented when they got rid of the home button with the iPhone X and beyond. I used to be in the second camp and believed that I would choose to keep the button layout on my future devices. But after using it for a while on my OnePlus 6, review coming soon by the way, just to see what it was like, I'm starting to lean more towards the first camp, but at least in regards to the future. Let me explain. You see, I don't think that what this is now is really a fully gesture-based system. It's only part of the way there, but gestures are the way to go. Now, let me first explain why gestures are the future, despite what I and many others may have thought just even a couple weeks ago. It all comes down to material design. Now, for those of you who don't know, material design is Google's design language that they apply, or at least are trying to apply to, all of their products, from search to YouTube, all the way to Android. Now, the goal is to have a unified design system in everything, so that the user can easily identify what everything is and how to use it, no matter where they are or what they are doing. And also to have a consistent design language universally, so that nothing feels out of place or botched together. Now, there's a whole website, material.io, that talks about this design language, its philosophy, and its components. So if you want to learn more, go check that out. Now, for this video, there are two philosophies in particular that I want to talk about, and the first is motion. Google's material guidelines state that motion focuses attention and maintains continuity through subtle feedback and coherent transitions. As elements appear on screen, they transform and reorganize the environment, with interactions generating new transformations. This means that a user's interactions with the system need to define the motion and the environment. That is why certain things like animations are important. Animations need to show the user what is happening, how they're getting from point A to point B, or from screen A to screen B. That's why gestures are important. Gestures are the user defining the motion entirely, and thus shaping the action and the environment. Now, let's take a look at a common design element found all over the current state of material, cards. Now, this ties into the second material philosophy, material as a metaphor. Material design is inspired by the physical world and its textures. Material surfaces reimagine the mediums of paper and ink. Now, in Material 2, or whatever you want to call it, the 2018 version, there's more of an emphasis on cards. Individual elements are cards that you can manipulate as if they were actual physical individual cards that you are moving around, hence material as a metaphor. Taking that philosophy to apps, apps are cards. The app you are using is the card you are holding. Let's take an example from Android Pie. To go to the overview screen, you swipe up. Now, if you look at the animation, it's as if the app card shrinks and goes up with your finger. That is the motion. The physical metaphor would be putting the app or the card on, say, a table to look at all of your available cards side by side. Now, keeping that in mind, the new design makes perfect sense from a material perspective. The gesture on the phone, the swipe up, translates to a real-world action that is being represented through the UI, and it all ties together perfectly. So a gesture system would be a better form of navigation, as it is a metaphor for real-world actions and can define the movement of elements on your phone, aka material design in its purest form. Now let's see why Android Pie isn't a gesture-based system yet. Now, this new navigation system is really only a slightly tweaked redesign of the existing navigation bar. It's like a baby step towards gestures, one thing at a time. Now, with the old system, there were 3 buttons: home, back, and recents. If you pressed home, you went to the home screen. If you pressed back, you went back. And if you pressed recents, you enter the overview screen to see your recent apps. Easy, simple, made sense. Now, there are two buttons. The home pill, named accordingly due to its slightly tweaked shape, and the back button. Now if you press home, you go home. You press back, you go back. Same as before. The only thing that's really been gesture-fied is the recents button. Now you swipe up on the home pill to get to the overview screen as demonstrated before. You can also swipe right on the pill to sort of scroll through the recent apps, although this implementation is rather janky from my experience. Sometimes a quick swipe doesn't register, sometimes it goes to the next app, sometimes it skips an app. It's not consistent, and it definitely could use some improvement. So all in all, there are two gestures now to replace 1/3 of the buttons, while the remaining 2/3 of the buttons are still buttons. Now, I think that either the gesture navigation implementation in Android is not well thought out, or it's meant to be a stepping stone. Maybe Google knows that most of its users won't like it, and so it's trying to give it to us bit by bit to make it easier to get used to and easier to accept it. Whatever the case may be, it definitely has a way to go before its navigation is truly material. Now, before I present my idea for how the gesture navigation should work, I'd like to look at, well, OnePlus's own proprietary gesture navigation. But before that, I'm gonna puke. If you want to talk about copying the iPhone X, this is it. You swipe up to go home, and swipe up and hold to go to the overview screen, just like in iOS. But you can't swipe up and go to the side like on iPhones, which is arguably the better way of doing that if that's how you're gonna do it. Also, the animations suck. If we're going home, sure, it's like putting away the card. Okay, cool, that's fine. But for recents, it just kind of happens. Now, this is obviously because of the whole waiting thing, but it's awful. And then to go back, you swipe up from either corner, which feels kind of misplaced, especially since the rest of the system is copying iOS, which doesn't use a back button. And the icing on the cake, it just takes away the entire navigation bar. It's gone. This is supposed to give you your screen space back, but it also means that there's no starting point for the gestures. And if you have a keyboard, for example, you sometimes hit the keys. All in all, OnePlus gestures are a solid 1 out of 10. That one is just for the home animation, that one's okay. I'm definitely gonna stick to Google's version on this one for my own navigation bar. Okay, so now finally, here's my idea that Google could use. And it involves just the pill on the bottom of the screen. So you swipe up to go to overview, just like now, but the apps line up towards the right instead of the left like they are now. You would swipe left to move between recent apps instead of right like it is now. Let's switch on and I'll explain why later. You swipe down to go home as if you're putting the app or the card away. Now, this one might be a little more difficult given the limited space under the pill, especially as those bottom bezels shrink, but I think Google could get it to work, and if needed, I think the home button is one that could maybe stay button a little longer. Now finally, to go back, you swipe right. This fits better in terms of the movement and the animation. And this is also why the recent apps had to be switched to the other side. But anyways, that's just an idea for how Google could complete the gesture navigation system in Android in a way that follows material design philosophy. In my opinion, at least. I'm by no means a UI expert. This is just my observations as a user. And if you guys have any ideas, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Make sure it sticks to material design. But whatever Google decides to do, it is crucial that it sticks to material philosophy in order to provide the most consistent and the most fluid experience for the user. Anyways, that's just my thoughts on the matter. If you have a different opinion or anything, definitely start the discussion down in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to see more cool videos like this one in the future. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at SolidStateTweet for the first updates on everything before it hits YouTube. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one.